autopilot podcasts. A song drops on TikTok. It sounds exactly like Drake and The Weeknd collaborating. Same vocal texture, same energy, same production style. Within 1 week, it racks up over 15 million streams across Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, and TikTok. And here's the thing, neither artist made a single note of it. The track was called Heart on My Sleeve, and it was generated entirely by AI. Today, we're pulling apart what AI is actually doing to music creativity and the industry. Specifically, how it's changing the way music gets made, what the research says about creativity and who benefits, and where the legal lines are being drawn right now. By the end of this episode, you'll have a real picture of what's at stake, not just for artists, but for anyone who listens to music. And to dig into all of this, I've got someone who's been deep in this space. Let's get into it. When you look at what AI is doing in music right now, what's the most important thing people are getting wrong?
The biggest misconception is that AI in music is one thing. It's not. Researchers at RxEve published a study analyzing 337 AI music artworks, and what they found is that AI is being used across a huge range of formats: singles, albums, live performances, installations, ballets, operas, soundtracks. And within those formats, the ways artists are using AI are really different. Composition, co-composition, sound design, lyrics generation, even translation. So when people say AI music, they're collapsing a really wide spectrum into one scary headline.
Right, so it's not just a machine spitting out a song.
Exactly. And that same RxEve study found that AI is being employed as a co-creative tool, as an artistic medium in its own right, and in live performances and installations. Some of the more innovative uses include what they call exploring uncanny aesthetics, multilingual and multi-genre song releases, and entirely new formats like online installations. These are artists making deliberate creative choices about how to use the technology. It's not passive.
That's a really different picture than the robots are replacing musicians narrative. So what are the actual tools people are working with?
So there's a whole ecosystem now. Google's Magenta, OpenAI's MuseNet, AI Via, which is widely used in game and film scoring, and platforms like Lambda, which offers AI-driven mastering and has genuinely democratized access to high-quality audio finishing. Splice has AI-driven sound design features, and according to a 2025 report by DJ Mag, AI-generated tracks now account for approximately 10% of electronic music playlists on major streaming platforms like Spotify. That's not a rounding error, that's a real market share.
10%. That's significant. And it makes me think this isn't the first time a technology has come in and shaken up how music gets made, right? Like the shift from analog to digital, the rise of home studios, totally. And that historical framing actually matters here. AI's journey into music production started in the early 2010s with algorithms designed to analyze and generate music. But what's different now is the scale and the quality. One music producer who spent 28 years in the industry, working with Hans Zimmer's remote control productions, wrote that nothing in his career compares to what AI is doing right now. Not the analog to digital shift, not the rise of DAWs, not the democratization of home studios. He described it as a compression of timelines that was previously impossible.
What does that compression actually look like in practice? He gave a really concrete example. In the old world, if a client needed 50 tracks for a meditation app, each unique, properly tagged with mood, tempo, genre, instrumentation metadata, with cover art and licensing documentation, that would take a team of composers, producers, mixing engineers, and graphic designers several months. The cost? Easily tens of thousands of dollars. Today, his company is producing approximately 50 tracks daily across 190 virtual artists and 38 genres. And he's clear that the AI doesn't work alone. Every step still involves human oversight, creative direction, and quality control.
50 tracks a day. That's wild. But I want to flag something. There's also been this longer-running conversation in the artistic community about AI and music that predates all the mainstream attention. Like, the AI song contest has been running since 2020.
Yeah, and that's a really important point. The RxEve researchers actually noted that the AI song contest has been exploring AI's potential for songwriting since 2020. So artists and researchers were already wrestling with these questions about what it means to co-create with a machine, about aesthetics, about authorship, years before Heart on My Sleeve made it a mainstream crisis. The conversation didn't start with the controversy. The controversy just made everyone else pay attention.
That's a good way to put it. So let's shift into the research side of this, because I think this is where it gets genuinely surprising. What does the science actually say about AI and creativity?
So there's a study published in the Journal of Intelligence in 2025. Researchers from Kookmin University and Sangmyong University surveyed music practitioners from diverse backgrounds to understand how AI tool usage influences their creative output. And the headline finding is that AI technology acceptance is significantly correlated with creative performance. But here's the nuance that gets lost. This correlation was particularly strong among individuals with formal music education and experience using music composition software.
Wait, so AI boosts creativity most for people who are already trained musicians?
That's what the data suggests. And the study also found that socioeconomic factors, age, gender, professional background, influence how extensively AI gets used in the creative process. So the picture isn't AI democratizes music for everyone equally. It's more like AI amplifies what's already there. If you have the foundation, AI can accelerate and expand your creative range. If you don't, the gap might actually persist.
That's a really uncomfortable finding if you're someone who's been selling AI as the great equalizer.
It is. But then there's a counterpoint from a different study, and this one is more optimistic. Researchers at Gachon University published findings in Frontiers in Psychology in 2026, looking at 405 university students in China who used generative AI for collaborative music creation. And what they found is that GAI support significantly enhanced creative interest, creative self-efficacy, self-regulated learning ability, and perceived creative competence. The effect sizes were meaningful. Creative interest had a beta of 0.616, self-efficacy 0.557.
So for students, people who are still building their skills, AI is actually building their confidence and their sense of themselves as creators?
Exactly. And the researchers framed it as empirical support for a model of AI-enhanced creativity. The idea being that AI isn't just a production tool, it can be a scaffold for developing human creative capacity. That's a very different framing than AI replaces the musician.
I like that, AI as a scaffold. But here's where I want to push a little, because there's also a more skeptical take in the research, right? Not everyone is optimistic.
Absolutely. A paper published in the MSI Journal of Arts, Law and Justice in September 2025 by researchers from the University of Lagos makes a pointed argument. They write that AI's attempts at creativity are, in their words, a half-hearted attempt at originality, and that AI's output raises serious questions about the challenges of distinguishing between impersonation and innovation. They're asking, when an AI generates a melody, is it creating something new, or is it just a very sophisticated remix of everything it was trained on?
That's the question, isn't it? And it connects directly to the legal mess that's been building.
It does. And hard on my sleeve is the perfect case study for that legal mess. On April 4, 2023, a TikTok user named Ghostwriter9977 uploaded a track that sounded exactly like Drake and The Weeknd collaborating. The vocals were synthetic, the melody was machine-generated, the lyrics were written by a prompt. Nobody sampled a single second of any existing recording. And yet Universal Music Group called it a violation of copyright law. But which copyright? That was the question nobody could cleanly answer.
And 15 million streams in a week before it got pulled.
That's not a niche experiment, that's a mainstream moment. Right. And according to Grey Group International's analysis, that incident marked the moment AI-generated music stopped being a curiosity and became an industry crisis. The Stanford AI Index 2024 documented that AI investment reached $91.9 billion globally in 2023, and the music and entertainment sector is absorbing a growing share of that through generative audio tools that can produce professional quality tracks in under 60 seconds. Since then, the RIAA has filed landmark lawsuits, the US Copyright Office has issued formal guidance, Congress has held hearings, and the EU has passed sweeping regulation.
So what does the US Copyright Office actually say? Where does the law land right now? The Copyright Office has been working through this in stages. They launched their AI initiative in early 2023, received over 10,000 public comments by December of that year, and have been issuing their report in parts. Part 1 in July 2024 addressed digital replicas. Part 2 in January 2025 addressed the copyrightability of AI outputs. And the core position is this. Federal copyright law protects only original works of authorship, and the Copyright Office has consistently held that authorship requires a human creator.
So if a machine makes it entirely on its own, nobody owns it.
Exactly. If an AI generates a piece of music with no meaningful human creative input, the result sits in the public domain. Nobody owns it, nobody can register it, nobody can stop others from using it. And here's the part that really reframes things. The Copyright Office uses this analogy. Typing a prompt into an AI and getting a finished track back is like a client giving instructions to a commissioned artist. The client doesn't become the author of the resulting painting.
That analogy is really clarifying, because it means the person who typed the prompt isn't the creator, the AI is. And the AI can't hold copyright, so the track just floats in legal limbo.
Unless the human does more. The Copyright Office draws the line at creative control. If you take AI-generated material and modify it, rework the harmony, write original lyrics, arrange the instrumentation, if you actually form the traditional elements of authorship, then the human-contributed portions can qualify for copyright protection. It's not all or nothing, but it requires real creative labor, not just prompt engineering.
So the more you shape it, the more you own it. That's actually a pretty coherent principle, even if it's hard to enforce.
Enforcement is exactly where it breaks down. And that brings us to what's happening at the industry level right now, which is honestly the scariest part of this story. In December 2025, a platform called Anna's Archive scraped almost all of Spotify, metadata for 256 million tracks, and audio for 86 million songs, totaling nearly 300 terabytes of data. And that data is now freely accessible to anyone, including AI companies.
Wait, 86 million songs just out there? Freely accessible. And according to Forbes contributor Virginie Berger, who covers music innovation and AI rights, the implication is that by 2026, attribution and enforcement become practically impossible once large consolidated datasets like this circulate openly. More AI models get trained on mixed, opaque datasets where the origin of the music can't be reconstructed with confidence. Licensing negotiations start happening after deployment, framed as risk management rather than consent.
So the industry isn't negotiating before the music gets used, it's cleaning up after the fact. That's the shift. And Berger's analysis is that the industry has realized control over training data has already slipped. Attribution, not access, becomes the real bottleneck. There's a growing divide between companies investing in upstream attribution and inference stage controls and those betting on ambiguity and settling disputes later. It's a fundamentally different power dynamic than the music industry has ever operated in.
And artists are noticing. I mean, Billie Eilish and Stevie Wonder signing open letters demanding protection, that's not a niche concern anymore.
It's not. And what's interesting is that the industry response in 2026 isn't just protest, it's also adaptation. According to Soundverse's analysis of AI music industry trends, by 2026, ethical AI has become a business priority. Companies are emphasizing licensed datasets, artist consent, and transparent monetization systems. There are now artist-driven AI models where musicians can train a model on their own catalog and style and then generate royalties every time someone creates music inspired by their work.
So instead of AI taking from artists are building AI models of themselves and getting paid when those models are used?
That's the emerging model. Soundverse describes it as transforming AI from a music copier into a co-producer. And there's also a push for what they call explainable AI, attribution layers that let producers trace generated segments back to their source data and understand how the AI arrived at its creative decisions. Attribution as a trust mechanism, not just a legal one.
That's a meaningful shift from who do we sue to how do we build systems that are transparent from the start.
And the researchers from the University of Lagos paper put it well. They argue for what they call guarded optimism. The idea that AI can be a useful adjunct rather than a competitor to human creativity, leading to a new partnership between technology and musicality. But that partnership requires intentional design. It doesn't happen automatically.
I want to come back to something you said earlier about Holly Herndon, because she's a real example of an artist who leaned into this deliberately.
Yeah, Herndon's album Proto, released in 2024, famously used AI as a collaborative tool, blending human and machine creativity. And Taryn Southern is another artist who's embraced AI for innovative compositions. These aren't people who stumbled into AI, they made deliberate artistic choices about how to integrate it. And that's actually what the RxEve study found when they looked at the 337 AI music artworks. The artists who self-identify as AI musicians are engaging in an artistic discourse. They're not casual creators, they're making aesthetic arguments.
Which is a very different thing from someone just hitting a button and uploading whatever comes out.
Completely different. And that distinction matters legally, creatively, and ethically. The RxEve researchers actually excluded casual creators from their study, people who use AI for entertainment purposes, because the artistic intent and discourse are what define the practice they were studying. Intent is doing a lot of work here.
So where does all of this leave the average musician? Someone who's not Holly Herndon, not a major label, just someone trying to make music and build a career. It's genuinely complicated. On one hand, tools like Lander for mastering, Aviva for composition, Splice for sound design, these are lowering the barrier to professional quality production in ways that would have been unimaginable 10 years ago. The 28-year veteran producer described it as democratizing access to capabilities that used to require expensive teams. On the other hand, if AI-generated tracks are flooding streaming platforms, 10% of electronic music playlists already, that's also compressing the market for human-made, functional music.
So the same tools that help you make music faster are also creating more competition for the music you make.
That's the tension. And the research from the Journal of Intelligence study adds another layer. Because if AI's creative benefits are strongest for people who already have formal training and experience, then the musicians who are most vulnerable to displacement might also be the ones least positioned to leverage AI as a tool. That's a structural problem, not just an individual one. And it's one that music education policy is going to have to grapple with. The Journal of Intelligence researchers actually flagged that. They said their findings should inform music education and technology training policies.
Right. And the Frontiers in Psychology study supports that. The fact that GAI-supported collaboration significantly improved students' creative development suggests that if you build AI into music education thoughtfully, you can use it to build human creative capacity rather than bypass it. The question is whether institutions move fast enough to do that intentionally.
That feels like the crux of it, intentionality. Whether the industry, educators, policymakers, whether anyone is actually being deliberate about how this unfolds.
And the signs are mixed. On the positive side, you have the Copyright Office doing the work, 3-part report, 10,000 public comments, formal guidance. You have artists like Herndon making deliberate aesthetic choices. You have companies building attribution layers and artist-driven models. On the negative side, you have 300 terabytes of scrapped Spotify data freely circulating and a legal framework that's still catching up to technology that moves faster than legislation.
So when you step back from all of this, the research, the legal battles, the industry shifts, what does it really come down to?
Here's what I keep coming back to. The question was never really, can AI make music? It clearly can. The question is what role human creativity plays in a world where it can. And the research actually gives us a more nuanced answer than the headlines do. AI acceptance correlates with creative performance, but for people with the foundation to use it well. AI-supported collaboration builds creative confidence in students. AI is being used as a co-creative tool and an artistic medium by serious artists. None of that sounds like replacement. It sounds like transformation.
Transformation that comes with real costs and real risks, especially around who controls the data, who gets paid, and who the law actually protects.
Absolutely. And the Forbes analysis from Virginie Berger is a useful reality check here. The most consequential shifts in the music industry in 2026 are not being driven by courts or policy, but by markets responding to new economic realities created by AI. Platforms, private equity, and technology companies are quietly redefining how rights are priced, how risk is managed, and who gets paid. That's happening whether or not the legal framework catches up.
Which means artists and listeners can't just wait for the law to sort it out. They can't. And the actionable insight from all of this is actually pretty clear. If you're a musician, understanding how these tools work and how copyright applies to AI-assisted work is no longer optional. The Copyright Office's guidance is public. The line between I pressed a button and I shaped this creatively is the line between owning your work and not owning it. That's worth understanding. And if you're a listener, someone who just loves music, this matters too, because the economics of who gets paid shapes what music gets made.
Exactly. If attribution collapses, if royalty systems get gamed, if the artists who built the training data don't get compensated, the incentive to make the kind of music that makes AI interesting in the first place starts to erode. The human creativity that AI is learning from has to be sustained. Otherwise, you're just training models on models.
Training models on models. That's a haunting image.
It is. And it's not hypothetical, it's the direction things go if the attribution problem doesn't get solved. The Anna's Archive situation is a preview of what happens when data control slips. 86 million songs, freely accessible, origin unverifiable. That's not a future risk. That already happened.
So here's what this really comes down to. We started with a song that sounded like Drake and The Weeknd, racked up 15 million streams, and had no human author. And what we've unpacked is that that moment wasn't an anomaly, it was a signal. A signal that the music industry's relationship with creativity, ownership, and value is being fundamentally renegotiated right now.
And the research gives us a more hopeful frame than the headlines suggest. AI can build creative confidence. It can expand what's possible for trained musicians. It can be a genuine co-creative partner when used with intention. But that potential only gets realized if the systems around it, legal, economic, educational, are built with the same intentionality. Right now, the technology is moving faster than the systems.
And the gap between those two speeds is where artists are living right now.
That's exactly right. And it's why the conversation happening in research labs, in courtrooms, in the Copyright Office, and in open letters signed by Billie Eilish and Stevie Wonder, all of it matters. Because the decisions being made right now about attribution, consent, and compensation are going to shape what music looks like for a generation.
That's the thing that lingers with me. Heart on My Sleeve had 15 million streams and no author. The question isn't whether AI can make music that people want to hear. It clearly can. The question is whether we're ready to decide what music is actually for and who it's supposed to serve. That's on us, not the algorithm. Thanks for being here for this one on Copilot Podcasts. If this got you thinking, share it with someone who makes music, listens to music, or just cares about where creativity is headed. We'll see you next time.